We continue with chapter 14 of Sefer Devarim, and I wish you all Shana Tova, a happy new year, as this chapter, even though I'm recording it already on the third day on Som Gedalia, was officially the chapter for Rosh Hashanah. Banima tem ladonai Elohechem. You are the children of God. How appropriate for the day of Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, lo titkodedu v'lo tasimu karcha beineinechem lamed. You shall not gash yourself or shave the front of your heads because of the dead. These were seen as perhaps, according to some, signs of idolatry, others extreme signs of mourning. And what the Torah is telling us, you are the children of God, and therefore you cannot gash yourselves. There are those who return back to the idea that man is created B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God, in the form of God, and thus harming the form of God is an affront to God. And again, why is this? Verse 2, Pasuk Bet, Ki am kadosh ata, because you are a holy nation, L'Adonai Elohecha, uvecha b'char Adonai Elohim skula mikol amim asher al pnei hadama. God chose you from amongst all the people to be his Am Segula, his treasured nation. And that's much of what Moshe has said here, right? God has chosen you, not because of anything that you were, and therefore you have to act in a certain way. And now we're going to go back to something that we've had previously in the Torah, which are laws of what we call kashrut. And because you're an Am Kadosh, lo tochal kol toeva, you shall not eat anything disgusting. Zot habeima asher tochelu shor sek savim v'seizim. You can eat ox, sheep, and goat, ayal, utzviv, yachmor, v'akov, v'tishon, uta'ov, v'zamer, deer, gazelle, wild goat, ibex, antelope, mountain sheep, v'chol v'hema, mafreset parsa, v'shvat sesa, shtei frasot, malat geraba v'hema, ota tochelu. Any animal that has the two signs, the cleft hooves, and chews its own cud, the hooves are cleft in two, those you may eat. One sign is not enough. They have to have both signs. So there's certain animals that chew their own cud, but they do not have cleft hooves, such as the camel, the hare, and the hare, and the shafan, which I have to admit I don't know exactly how to translate it. Here it says the daemon, v'tachazir, and the pig, ki mafris parsahu, because it has the cleft hooves, v'lo gera, but it does not chew its cud. Tamehu lachem, it is therefore impure. Mipsaram lo tochelu, uvenivlatam lo tiga. You shall not eat their flesh or touch their carcass. And we know, of course, the Torah has the rabbis, our tradition has sort of an anathema to pig. One cannot even raise pigs in the land of Israel. Continuing in verse 9, then and in terms of fish, you can eat something that has fins and scales. We're not going to detail which ones there are, fins and scales. And of course, questions have come up. What happens if the scales fall off? There are the fins, there are all sorts of questions that come up later, but the Torah just lists fins and scales. You may eat any pure bird. This is what you cannot eat: the eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, the kite, the falcon, any type of buzzard, and every type of any variety of raven, the ostrich, the nighthawk, the seagull, the hawk of any type of hawk, the little owl, the great owl, and the white owl, the hakaat, v'tarachama, v'tashalach, the pelican, the bustard, the cormorant, v'chasida, v'anafalamina, v'tuchifat, v'at leif, the stork, any variety of the hoopie, and the bat. We should remember that. All wings, swarming things are impure. They may not be eaten. There are those who, of course, said that basically the birds that you cannot eat are predators. You can eat prey. And it goes back to something we mentioned back in Sefer Vayikra when we discussed the laws of kashrut, sort of this Mary Douglas, although she retracted this, that the animals that are kosher are in a specific group. They cannot be animals that are partially in the land and partially in the water, or animals that eat other animals. They're not categorizing. Kashrut is about categorizing. It's about classifying the Jewish people. This is what we do. She later said that she didn't agree with that anymore, but that is what's one of the most famous attempts at trying to make sense of the laws of kashrut. Continuing in verse 20, Kol of tahor tochelu, made any pure winged creatures. doesn't tell us exactly what they are. Lo tochlu kol nevela lager asher b'sharach tinena v'achala o machor l'nachri ki am kadoshata l'Adonai lecha lo devashel gedi b'chalei v'uno. So you can't eat anything that's died of a natural death. We mentioned in the previous chapters that there is an idea of shchita, of the way it's slaughtered. It can't just be an animal that dies. However, it shouldn't go to waste. Give it to the stranger in your midst, i.e. the non-Jew. Give it to a foreigner. For you are a holy people, and you cannot eat these things. It has to be slaughtered. And then the Torah adds for the third time, lo tevashel gedi b'chalei v'imo, you shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk, which of course we derive are the laws of milk and meat, the prohibitions of basar v'chalab. And verse 21 is interesting because it's right again. What it's saying in the background is there are going to be people living with you who are not Jewish, who are not following these laws. Waste is a terrible thing, and you should treat them well, and therefore you should give it to them. Even if you sell it to them, the waste is a terrible thing. We'll come back to that in a few chapters. And something that can be eaten should not rot, should not go to waste. Verse 22, Aser taser kol tfuad zarecha yotzei asadeh shana shana. So now we're going into the laws of ma'aser, of giving a 10th part of your field every year that you sow. So, ve'achalt lefnei Adonai Elohecha b'makom asher yivchar l'shakein sham, shmo sham ma'asar dinancha tirashcha v'yitzrecha v'chorach b'korcha v'tzurecha l'man tilmad v'yirat Adonai Elohecha koyim. And the tithes of the new grain, of the wine, of oil, and the first of your herds and your flocks, you eat in the presence of God. What later becomes, of course, Yerushalayim, in the place that God will choose. And this is done so you may revere God. You're bringing your first things towards God. Obviously, some of the maaser you can eat, maaser sheni. Other types of maaser truma have to be given to Kohanim and Leviim, and they have to eat it. When God increases your land, when you have lots of space and you're going to be very far from Jerusalem, it's going to be very hard to transport your crops or your animals. What should you do? You convert them, you sell them, you take the first animal that is supposed to be maser, supposed to go up, maser behema, to and eaten in Jerusalem, you redeem it through money. You take that money and you bring it up with you to Jerusalem. And that money which was the worth of this sheep, of this cow, of your crops, that was for maser. You go and you can buy whatever you want. You can buy cattle, you can buy sheep, you can buy wine, but you have to eat it there in the presence of God and rejoice with your household. And again, we're told not to forget the Levi. The Levi doesn't have a large swath of land. They have 48 cities, and therefore they need to be rewarded for being those who work in the temple, those who serve God and teaching Bnei Yisrael. Every third year, you bring the tithe of your yield, but leave it within your settlements. And the Levi, because he doesn't have, again, this large portion of land, and the stranger, the fatherless, the widow, those who are economically challenged, they don't have a strong group and a strong network, they can come and they can eat that the year. In the third year, you don't have to bring it to Jerusalem, and they can eat it where they wish. And so here we see, interestingly, different laws that are intertwined together. There's the idea of Kedusha, the idea of sanctity, which thus tells you can't cut yourself. It tells you that there are certain animals that you can't eat. And because of Kedusha, because of holiness, you have to understand that your crops are also holy and that you have to show your allegiance to God, as well as part of the idea of holiness is the idea of having a just society, of not taking everything for yourself, but sharing from your bounty with those who don't have, with the Levi, with the Yatom, with the Almanah, with those who are not as blessed as you are.